Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Wight for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 26th of March 2022. This week we spent a very engaging day with the new team who will be joining us from the 1st of April. The new Wight Sense team will be looking after the sensory service contract that we take over for the Isle of Wight Council from the 1st of April. They will be providing one-to-one home-based assessments for anybody living with any level of sight loss or hearing loss here on the Isle of Wight. The day we spent together was a very interesting day as we all got to know each other a little better. The day finished off with us going to do an escape room in Newport so that we had to puzzle our way out, which was really enjoyed by everybody. Just to reconfirm, nothing at the charity will change. We will be completing the Wight Sense contract with the previous RNID staff coming over to join us, but the charity itself will not be affected. All of the activities and everything that we do will remain the same. Hoping everybody has had time to enjoy this beautiful new sunshine we've had over the last couple of days. Everybody stay safe. Lisa, CEO, Wight for Wight.
Mountain bikers take on tough alternative Seven Hills challenge from the Island Echo, read by Lee Ryan. Over 150 mountain bikers were blessed with near-perfect riding conditions when they took on the challenge of the alternative Seven Hills on Sunday, the 20th of March. The biannual event, hosted by GP Sport and Wight Mountain, was arguably the toughest route since the event's rebirth 5 years ago. The route left Sandown Airport and led the riders up some of the steepest climbs across the island, taking in Wroxall, Stenbury and St Catherine's Downs, even before arriving at the halfway stage. The riders then headed westwards to complete their 28-mile route over the Tennyson Trail to Freshwater Golf Course before dropping down to finish the line at Tapnell Farm. The event is a test of ability and endurance, and some notable achievements to pick out included local Apps Heath rider Leon Day, 2 hours and 2 minutes, managing to complete the full distance on his e-bike in a time of just over 2 hours, closely followed by James Hines, 2 hours 8 minutes, and Nigel Leopard, 2 hours 21 minutes. David Bone, Chichester, 2 hours 10 minutes, and local team Whitelink White Mountain rider Adam Hollyman, 2 hours 14 minutes, were the first two back on standard bikes, followed by local team Naught rider James Spencer, 2 hours 23 minutes, and Wight Mountain's Ben Johnson, 2 hours 24 minutes. GP Sport organiser Gareth Shilton said, "We had feared that the event would be billed as the wet and muddy one, but after a few days of sun, the trails had started to dry out, and on the whole, it was mud-free. It was good to see such a diverse group of riders take on the challenge. The world of e-bikes has opened up events such as ours to a whole new group of riders that would have not been able to complete it before. The standard Seven Hills Challenge will be returning in October. Details available on their website."
Hello, this is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Double awards success for Shanklin-based innovative physics. Pioneering Isle of Wight company Innovative Physics is celebrating success at the prestigious 2022 British Engineering Excellence Awards. The Shanklin-based enterprise was named the overall Grand Prix winner at the awards, having earlier also won the new High Impact Innovator of the Year category. Through no stranger to winning industry awards, the double success marks a particular high point for the company, which specialises in involving technologies including sensor technology, artificial intelligence and pattern recognition. With around a dozen employees, Innovative Physics works to solve complex science and engineering challenges. It has also been involved in many significant, wide-ranging projects, from aiding nuclear decontamination, including at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, to identifying security risks at airports and developing techniques that will help speed up the process of detecting cancer. Innovative Physics General Manager Robert Abbott said, "To win 2 awards, including the overall Grand Prix, really was a special moment for the company and its dedicated employees. Once again, we were pleased to fly the flag for the Isle of Wight innovation on the national stage. We were up against some very strong competition, including companies much larger than our own, so this is an achievement of which we are particularly proud. The company may also not have to wait long for its next accolade, having been shortlisted in the International Business of the Year category for this year's FSB Celebrating Small Business Awards in the South East event on Friday."
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Over 750 complaints lodged over e-scooter misuse on the Isle of Wight. More than 750 complaints about the misuse of e-scooters have been lodged since the introduction of the eco-friendly vehicles on the Isle of Wight. In November 2020, Beryl brought over the first e-scooters as part of a 12-month partnership with the Isle of Wight Council. The scheme has continued and grown over the last 15 months, expanding to more towns, as well as the launch of an e-bike rental pilot. The scheme has been met with mixed reactions, from those welcoming this sustainable transport option to others who are concerned about safety. Now, figures revealed in a Freedom of Information request show that between November 2020 and November 2021, a total of 1,004 misuse reports were filed with the Isle of Wight Council. The misuse reports came from 749 complaints, with complaints able to log more than one category of misuse. The misuse fell into different categories, including 87 for antisocial behaviour, 178 for dangerous driving on the road, 235 for riding with a passenger, 141 for underage rider, 363 for riding on a pavement. The Independent Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety, PACTS, is calling on the government to act decisively on the growing problems of unsafe and illegal e-scooter use. Using the e-scooter trials taking place in 31 areas across the country, PACTS, that's PACTS again, is recommending that if the government looks to legalise the use of private e-scooters, it should adopt 14 safety regulations, including a maximum speed limit of 12.5 miles per hour and mandatory helmet wearing. David Davis, PACT's Executive Director, has said e-scooters are a controversial issue and risks to riders and pedestrians are increasingly apparent. The government should act now to curb dangerous and illegal use. Even if the government decides on the way forward soon, legislation will not take effect until sometime next year. They should take this opportunity to gather evidence and consult widely. To report misuse, you can contact Beryl by phone or email between 7 in the morning and 9 at night, 7 days a week, either emailing support@beryl, BERYL.cc, or calling 0203 003 5044.
This is Alison reading an article from the Island Echo entitled New Community Prehabilitation Service to Support People Waiting for Planned Surgery. A new community prehabilitation service is supporting patients awaiting surgery to take the steps needed to improve both their physical and mental health in preparation for their surgical procedure. This recently launched service, delivered by the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, helps to avoid preventable delays to accessing surgery by assessing patients and optimising their health and well-being prior to a pre-assessment appointment. Patients are seen face-to-face for a one-off appointment in their own homes by healthcare assistants, where they carry out a comprehensive assessment that includes blood pressure, height, weight, medical history, and a lifestyle questionnaire. Assessments are reviewed by the clinical team lead, and any underlying concerns, such as raised blood pressure, uncontrolled diabetes, asthma, or COPD, are referred to the patient's GP for review and treatment. This means that patients can get any treatment needed and make lifestyle changes prior to their pre-assessment, avoiding any delay and prevention of surgery. Alison Spearman, Community Prehab Team Lead, said, "Undergoing surgery is physically and mentally demanding on patients, so it's important that patients are optimised before they attend their pre-assessment appointments. We are pleased to be able to provide this service where we can see patients in the comfort of their own homes. We provide a physical assessment alongside a health questionnaire and can refer patients to their GP if there is anything concerning or outside normal parameters, such as high blood pressure. This helps to address early anything that may have previously delayed their surgery when identified at their pre-assessment appointment."
Farmer warns against releasing non-native wildlife to the island. From the Island Echo, read by Lee Ryan. An Isle of Wight farmer has highlighted the disadvantages of introducing new species to the Isle of Wight. Mark Coventry, who has a degree in zoology and has previously worked for Nature England, farms Lower Luton Farm near Northwood. The Gurnard Loch, which runs through his land and is prone to flooding, would make an ideal habitat for beavers, which causes him great concern. Mark strongly opposes the idea of releasing beavers on the island. He says, "Why? We don't need them. They bring no benefit at all. If I had beavers in my part of Gurnard Loch, they would devastate the ancient woodland. Beavers are high-quality engineers. If you flood a piece of land that has never been flooded before, all the trees will die." Mr. Coventry does not believe beavers can coexist with humans and their pets. He claims beavers are territorial. They would not tolerate other animals. They would kill otters. Any dog that dived into a beaver pond would be attacked. Beavers are large animals weighing up to 30 kilograms. That's 60 times the weight of a rat with teeth capable of felling trees. People wouldn't be able to see beavers because of the dangers of possible attacks and falling trees. Mr. Coventry denies that beavers reduce flooding. He says, "Beaver dams will pre-flood the floodplain, preventing it from acting as a buffer. Beaver dams will not withstand heavy flood incidents." Most devastatingly, Mr. Coventry has drawn attention to the situation in the Argentinian island of Terra del Fuego, where 50 beavers were released in 1946. There are now estimated to be over 200,000 on the island. The beavers have devastated forests on Terra del Fuego. They gnawed through cables, denying internet access to the main city on the island, and they ate the wooden border fence separating Argentina from Chile and spread to the neighbouring country. Attempts are now being made to eradicate beavers from the island. Mr. Coventry has said, "Evidence from Terra del Fuego has totally been ignored by the pro-nature people. Once an animal has been given protection, you'll never get rid of it." Mr. Coventry was previously opposed to the release of white-tailed sea eagles on the Isle of Wight, which he described as an imbecility. He said, "At most, only 2 pairs of sea eagles could live on the Isle of Wight. Any more would be devastating to waders, seabirds and newborn lambs. More than a couple would devastate the bird life in Newtown Estuary. Sea eagles can't fish in the Solent because they can only hunt in still water. Their diet is birds, 72% according to Countryfile. Fortunately, most of our sea eagles flew back to Holland where they had been bred. Once they have been released, it becomes impossible to get rid of them. When a sea eagle teaches its young to take lambs, they will never stop doing so. When a Scottish sheep farmer found his flock decimated by eagles, it took 3 years to get an injunction to remove them."
This is an article from Island Echo, read by Sue. Controversial ride interchange scheme to begin next month. Controversial work on ride transport interchange to provide better travel connectivity, as well as an improved public space, is due to begin next month. The project is primarily funded by a government grant from the anticipated in May, with those works starting in the autumn when a contractor can be sourced. To minimise disruption, the works will be delivered in a number of phases over 12 months, taking into account the major events, including the Isle of Wight Festival, Tour of Britain, Ride Carnival and the annual Scooter Rally. It will all begin on Monday the 4th of April, with works to construct the new footway and cycle route improvements between the Hover Travel footbridge and Dover Street, including improved pedestrian crossing facilities at the Dover Street Esplanade junctions. The old toilet block and cafe will also be demolished and temporary toilets provided within Western Gardens until new facilities are installed as part of the station refurbishment. This first phase should be completed by the end of July, with little impact on pedestrians or vehicles using the area. In advance of these works commencing, a temporary worksite compound will be established on the existing coach park area opposite the old ice rink, with coaches being advised to use the coach park next to Ride Super Bowl. Councillor Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure, said, "It has taken a while to prepare for this project, but after extensive consultation with the public and the businesses, I am delighted we are about to begin work on a scheme that will deliver a much improved public space and welcoming transport interchange for all users, both from the mainland and island itself, making travel to and through Ride a better, easier and more pleasant experience. This scheme is the result of a wide collaboration both with our local authority partners on the mainland and also with our transport operators on the island, all supported by a government grant of £10 million that builds upon partnership working to encourage sustainable and active travel. I am also pleased that thought and planning has been given to reducing the impact on residents and road users during construction, and that where possible arrangements are in place to cater for the needs of the major events that rely on a fully functioning interchange."
This is an article from On the Wight, read by Terry. Steam Railway reveal plans to make Wootton Station more interesting to visit. Plans to add to the offering at the Isle of Wight Steam Railway have been unveiled, this time in Wootton. At the western end of the Haven Street line, the Wootton station currently has a platform, waiting room, office, toilet and a signal box, but no further attractions. As part of plans to give passengers the experience of going somewhere rather than just going for a ride, the Isle of Wight Steam Railway is looking to build a traditional railway goods shed and a coal yard with information boards at its Wootton stop on Station Road. Planning documents submitted in an application to the Isle of Wight Council say the building would illustrate some of the ways the railway served the local community by carrying goods such as milk and livestock. A coal yard exhibit will also be built to demonstrate a wagon being unloaded into pens for storage and then transported further. It will also feature a small hut, which would have been used by a clerk to take coal orders and manage distribution. The hut will be a salvaged and reconditioned structure that formerly stood on the Newport to Cowes line, where it functioned as a crossing keeper's hut at Smithards Lane Crossing. It is said there is currently little to encourage passengers of the steam railway to disembark at Wootton and explore, as displays and facilities are at Having Street. To maximise the visitor experience, it was desirable to provide attractions at other stations. To view the plans at 22/00277/FU L, you can visit the Council's planning register. The public consultation closes on 1st of April. Wootton Bridge Parish Council has supported the application, raising no objections with it.
This is Alison reading an article from On the Wight entitled Prestigious Award for Cowes Enterprise College's Work Embedding Maritime Learning into Curriculum. Cowes Enterprise College has been awarded the prestigious Maritime UK Award for Future Skills. This is in recognition of the Academy's work embedding maritime learning into the curriculum. The Academy, which is part of Ormiston Academies Trust, OAT, beat stiff competition from fellow finalists Orkney College Maritime Studies Department, University of the Highlands and Islands, and City College Plymouth to scoop the prize. The award is given out to those that have made a tangible contribution to meeting the future skills needs of the sector. Winners must evidence pioneering activity across education, training or apprenticeship development to help match available skills to the emerging requirement of the maritime sector. Cowes Enterprise College has worked collaboratively with the maritime sector to create a curriculum which weaves maritime content through traditional curriculum subjects, as well as applying it to practical projects like boat building, sail design, and presentations on coastal management. Meanwhile, local maritime experts such as divers, naval architects and maritime conservationists deliver specific lessons. The Academy is now developing the scheme in 4 additional coastal schools in Grimsby, Ipswich and Merseyside, with schools from Cornwall also interested. The initiative has the potential to get maritime into mainstream educational schools across the UK. Rachel Kitley, principal at Cowes Enterprise College, said, "It's a huge honour for Cowes Enterprise College to have won this award, and testament to the hard work of staff, students and countless partners and businesses across the Isle of Wight, who have been pivotal in enabling us to deliver maritime learning across our curriculum. By investing in maritime industries, our coastal community is able to capitalise on its location, tapping into the diverse maritime sector."
Isle of Wight men jailed over migrant smuggling from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee Ryan. 3 Isle of Wight men who smuggled people into the country via East Cowes have been jailed. Jean-Pierre Lebel, aged 45 of Ashy Road, Ryde, was sentenced to 8 years at the Isle of Wight Crown Court, while Stephen Redhead, aged 47 of Horsebridge Hill, Newport, was given 5 years, and Christopher Barber, aged 55 of Landguard Road, Shanklin, was jailed for 3 years. Both Redhead and Barber were found guilty by unanimous jury of conspiring to do an act to facilitate the commission of a breach of UK immigration law by a non-EU person, contrary to the Immigration Act, following a trial at Portsmouth Crown Court, which concluded on March the 4th. Lebel pleaded guilty to the same offence at a court hearing on February the 3rd. On March 17, 2020, Lebel travelled to Cherbourg, France, on board a 70-foot ketch yacht named Honore with Redhead and Barber. They returned to East Cowes Marina on March 19, 2020, with 12 additional people who are suspected to have been migrants entering the UK illegally. CCTV was examined during the migrants alighting the vessel, and a report was made to Hampshire Constabulary following the incident before being passed to officers from the South East Regional Organised Crime Unit, also known as Sirocco, to investigate. The migrants are believed to have been in the UK, but have not been able to be traced due to the incident being reported retrospectively. Between June the 26th and June the 27th, 2020, Lebel organised another journey using a small boat named Freedom. On this occasion, he was unsuccessful, and the vessel used was intercepted after a joint operation with Sirocco, the National Crime Agency, and French authorities. 6 Albanian nationals were found to be on board, along with 2 criminal associates, who were subsequently prosecuted in France. Checks established that the Albanians did not have the necessary pre-entry clearance needed to enter the United Kingdom. Lebel, Redhead and Barber were charged with the offence on May the 25th last year. Senior Investigating Officer Claire Truman from Sirocco said, Redhead, Barber and Lebel have been sentenced to substantial prison sentences for their parts in smuggling people to the country. This concludes a detailed investigation into organised immigration crime by the South East Regional Organised Crime Unit with the support of the National Crime Agency, UK Border Force and French authorities. The consequences of people entering the country illegally are never far from news headlines, often with all too familiar tragic headlines. While on this initial occasion, 12 people did arrive in the UK without incident, they are believed to have entered the country illegally and have subsequently disappeared without trace. The sentences issued recognise the gravity of the events, and we will continue our work to target those people who bring people into the country illegally, taking gambles with the lives of fellow human beings in order to profit. NCA Regional Head of Investigations Peter Stevens said, people smugglers risk lives with the sole aim of profit, and these men were no different. This is why we are determined to do all we can to disrupt and dismantle the organised crime gangs involved along every step of the route. I'm delighted that through joint working with the NCA, Sirocco and the French authorities, we have been able to put a stop to this criminal enterprise and secure these convictions. The NCA has issued an appeal to the UK maritime industry to be aware of organised crime groups targeting them to obtain small boats for people smugglers. Some of the signs sellers are being told to look out for include buyers looking to pay in cash, repeat or bulk purchases of boats or equipment, a lack of concern about the condition of the boat or equipment being purchased, buyers wanting to complete transactions quickly, cheaply, or without a delivery address. Boat owners are being asked to take extra security measures to protect their vessels and equipment and report suspicious behaviour following cases of theft or attempted thefts of boats and equipment. Anyone with concerns about suspicious activity should report it to the independent charity Crime Stoppers, either by free phone on 0800 555 111 at any time or via crimestoppers-uk.org.
Hello, this is an article from On the Wight read by Sue. Ventnor Harbor costing Isle of Wight Council over £80,000 to run. The running costs for Ventnor Harbor have increased over the last financial year again. The budget for 2021 was set at £76,054, but by February 2022 it had already reached £78,821, with the end of the financial year figure predicted to be £94,529. That's £18,475 over budget. There's another blow for the Isle of Wight Council in that forecasting berthing fees of £6,024 have been nowhere near reached, with just £1,056 raised to date and no more expected before the financial year end. The Isle of Wight Council do have £12,000 lease payments to bank, but without the expected berthing fees, the income forecasts are down £4,968 for 2021-22. Cheetah Marine, who previously held the contract for the day-to-day supervision of the harbour, no longer undertake any of these functions, as they're now carried out by the council and are managed by the senior harbour master. Their contract to clear the harbour of microalgae at an annual cost of removing of around £87,420 was due to come to an end in March 2022. As this function was considered unsustainable in the medium to long term, council officers commissioned Royal Haskoning to investigate options to prevent or reduce the microalgae entering the harbour. The outcome of the investigation was that although physical changes to the harbour were possible, albeit at a high capital cost, they could not be proven to mitigate the accumulation of microalgae, and that the most economical way of resolving the situation was to continue the physical removal and disposal. The Isle of Wight Council did say in March 2021 that if Ryde Harbour is to be sold to Ryde Town Council, which it was, then the future operation of Ventnor Harbor could be subject to a separate marketing exercise.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Council apology after personal data of Isle of Wight students leaked. The Isle of Wight Council has referred itself to the data privacy watchdog after it erroneously emailed out the personal details of 90 island families. The local authority has apologised for the breach. An email, which contained an attachment, was sent to around 80 email addresses on Friday the 18th of March. Parents of Year 11 elective home education students received the information, the council said. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, "In line with the council's protocols, the email was recalled 20 minutes after sending, and a follow-up email was also sent to all recipients asking them to delete the original email without opening it." The email was sent to around 80 addresses, and the council would like to apologise to all of the families listed in the document that was incorrectly attached, and would be grateful for their support in deleting the original email sent in error. The council said it has notified the Information Commissioner's Office, which is expected to look into the matter.
This is Alison, reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, entitled Controversial Knighton Development Refused, Despite Being Partially Built. A controversial development in Knighton, which led to the Isle of Wight Council being heavily criticised by a national watchdog, has been refused, despite being partially built. Retrospective planning permission had been sought by Martin Cotton at Bridge Cottage for the retention and completion of 2 garages for domestic purposes, one built in 2019 and the other started in 2021. The site, on the edge of Knighton, is part of the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, AONB, Site of Special Scientific Interest, SSI, and Special Area of Conservation, SAC. And council planning officers decided the large garage structures would result in a significantly harmful impact on the landscape character. Asking the planning agent, Norman Wight, for clarification, officers were told they were to house a significant collection of classic cars and motorbikes. Officers said they noted the hobby, but the outbuildings would alter the character of the grounds surrounding the cottage from domestic to commercial or industrial use. The design and finish of the garages, they said, appear commercial in nature, causing the site to appear out of place, being of excessive size and scale. The argument put forward by Mr. Wight for the outbuildings, the council said, did not outweigh the harm they would cause. Officers determined the garages would also fail to protect or enhance the special qualities of the AONB, appearing as urban and incongruous features in their surroundings, and result in a significant adverse effect on the SAC and SSI. Mr. Cotton is able to appeal the decision made by the council to the government's planning inspectorate, otherwise the structures may have to come down. A complaint about the council's planning considerations of all development at Bridge Cottage was made by a concerned resident to the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, LGSCO, leading to an investigation launched at the end of 2020. The watchdog determined the council had committed errors and given wrong advice, resulting in more development than might otherwise have occurred. The authority has agreed to review its procedures, already undertaken officer training, and pay £300 in compensation to a charity of the complainant's choice.
Isle of Wight's popular sweet corn fair scrapped. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee Ryan. The organisers behind the Isle of Wight's sweet corn fair have called time on the popular event, with the past few years being hampered by the weather, then COVID. The team says it made the difficult decision to no longer carry on. The sweet corn fair grew from a small fete-style event back in 2006 to the sensational two-day event of recent years. The last Sweet Corn Fair was scheduled for its 13th year in 2019, where due to high winds and rain it had to be cancelled. It seemed to be an unlucky number. Jane Gibbs, co-owner of Arreton Barns and organiser of the Sweet Corn Fair, said, "Over the last few years we've been lucky enough to work with some amazing and talented people to bring a fun, family and great value event to the Isle of Wight. However, we have become a victim of our own success, and organising an event of this scale with many volunteers has become too big to manage." Jane continued, "We know the Sweet Corn Fair will be sadly missed by many, but not to worry. There will be many other events happening at Arreton Barns over the coming year, from Easter fun, farm auctions, motorbike gatherings, a Platinum Jubilee tea party and shindig, and so much more. I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who has been involved with the Sweet Corn Fair. The Sweet Corn Fair has raised thousands of pounds for local charities during its reign, including Barleybourne, St George's School, Mountbatten Hospice, Challenge and Adventure, and most recently, Bewley Respite."
Hello, this is an article from On the Right, read by Sue. Vestas Isle of Wight expansion with production of 85-metre blades and 50 new rolls. Back in April last year, when wind turbine manufacturers Vestas announced they were investigating the potential of expanding its UK footprint through additional manufacturing and supplier sites across the UK, it was mentioned that this might include the Isle of Wight. It appears that there is good news for the island today, as Isle of Wight Conservative MP Bob Seeley explains. I've talked with Vesta this morning, who confirmed the great news about their investment in the island. In the past months, Vesta have been talking to government about building the new generation of larger 85-metre wind turbine blades over here on the island. This decision is important, not only for high-quality jobs for islanders, but it's also important for Britain as we increase the supply of renewable energy. I understand that there will be another 50 roles at Vestas, bringing their total island workforce to 700. This is a major vote of confidence in the island and in islanders to deliver very high-quality manufacturing in green energy. We should be proud of the role that the island is playing. I thank Vesta for their investment, and I'll be working with them to make sure that we can continue to develop the island as a national hub of green energy. News on the Wight has been in touch with Vesta, who confirmed they will manufacture blades for its V174-9.5 MW wind turbine at the Isle of Wight plant from the end of the second quarter of 2022. Johnny Hoy Henriksen, CEO Northern and Central Europe, said, "Introducing a new V174-9.5 MW manufacturing line at the Isle of Wight will help boost supply of a key component for the European market, and it underlines how Vestas' flexible manufacturing setup ensures a competitive product offering to our customers." Vestas has invested in the UK for 20 years, and we have great pride in the technical expertise in blade manufacturing that we have developed at our Isle of Wight plant. A spokesperson for Vesta also shared the update below. The Isle of Wight plant currently produces V164 turbine blades and has delivered over 1,000 blades to North European markets, including more than £360 million worth of export since 2014. In the past 5 years, Vestas have delivered V164 blades from the Isle of Wight to 7 of the UK's largest offshore wind projects. Since 2002, Vestas has tested and manufactured wind turbine blades on the Isle of Wight, prototyping and producing over 10,000 blades, and currently employing more than 650 full-time employees in high-value manufacturing. Vestas have invested close to £1 billion with UK suppliers, including more than £100 million per year since 2017. In total, Vestas currently employs over 1,500 people in the UK, spanning blade, manufacturing, R&D, construction service and other vital functions.
This is Alison, reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio entitled "Recycle Bike Project Organisers Thank Islanders Following Incredible Response." Recycle Bikes to Africa had an amazing response to their request for unwanted adult bikes at the Saturday market in Newport. Local coordinator Sue Bailey said, "It was amazing. The bikes didn't stop arriving between 9:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. We hoped to be given about 30 bikes and ended up with nearly 90. By 1 p.m. it became clear there was not going to be sufficient room in the van, but the bikes kept arriving. At 3 p.m, with the van as full as possible, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with all the extra bikes. Imagine my relief when the kind folks of Métier Ingenuity offered me a space to store the bikes until I am able to arrange another van and another crossing. Whitelink ferries have given a complimentary ferry crossing to recycle, allowing the van load of donated bikes to be delivered to the charity's headquarters in Colchester, ready to start the next part of the journey. In Colchester, the bikes are loaded into shipping containers and shipped to one of 4 projects in the Gambia, Ghana, South Africa and Zambia. In Ghana, for example, bicycles are distributed through the village bicycle projects, in which Recycle gives village bike mechanics detailed training along with specialised bike tools and spare parts. This comprehensive, holistic approach ensures the bikes will be dependable, affordable and sustainable transportation. Women and girls, who are frequently marginalised, are specifically targeted for inclusion in programmes which begin to address the gender inequalities that limit their access to bicycles.
Good morning, this is Madeline.
And Susan.
And before we start the second part of the talking news, here is this week's society news. The swimming group is on every Monday between 1:30 and 2:30 at Medina Leisure Centre. For more information, please call the office. The group are always looking for new members and transport can be arranged.
Coffee and Chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m, and it's only £1 for coffee and cake. Please come along for a chat, and members of staff will be there for any assistance with equipment and information.
Our Mix and Mingle group is on a Thursday at Millbrook House between 10:30 and 2 p.m. If you would like to find out more about this very sociable group and the activities they do, please do not hesitate to call the office once again.
This week we have had 2 new exciting activities start: horse riding and 10-pin bowling. Members thoroughly enjoyed themselves but would love to have new members join them for it next month. Therefore, if you fancy either activity, please call the office.
We have another new activity starting on Friday the 8th of April, the Millbrook Milers. This is for members who enjoy a stroll of about a mile and with the company of fellow members and volunteers. If you would like to come along, please call the office.
Remember, our Easter chicks are on sale at Millbrook House for only £2 each, which includes a chocolate egg. Or you can buy a beautiful basket of chicks containing a family of 5 for only £10. The perfect Easter gift for family and friends.
If you are interested in our members forum group, the date is Tuesday, April the 12th at 10:30 a.m. Please call the office to let us know you are available to attend. The more the merrier.
And our fundraising committee meets on April the 1st at Millbrook at 10 a.m. If you're unable to attend but have some great ideas for us to raise vital funds for the charity, please call and speak to Susan, and she would love to chat with you.
And now moving on to the second part of the county press, starting with letters. The first letter is from Tim Barker. More to beavers than just cutting down trees. I have read with interest other people's views in the county press on the 18th of March on the reintroduction of beavers to the Isle of Wight, and it is a shame that the objectors don't see the wider picture. Yes, beavers do cut down trees, but they are the environmental engineers that help restore water systems and prevent water runoff and nitrates entering our waterways. They encourage more biodiversity with the benefits that go with this, and the wetland bogs that they create during their dam building stores more carbon than the trees they cut down. At least they're not adding to the problem by burning it. Therefore, there is a real benefit in reintroducing them back to the island's water systems, rather than just being regarded as a pest that cuts down trees.
Please think of Ventnor's great traders. From Sally Fitzgerald Bond, Ventnor. This is a copy of a letter that was sent to Bob Seeley, MP. I recently returned from holiday and was most concerned at the state of the High Street in Ventnor. The disruption to traffic and pedestrians alike made it well nigh impossible to shop in Ventnor, and as a result, shopkeepers suffered very badly. No effort seems to have been made by either Wight Fibre or the Isle of Wight Council to mitigate the impact of the works to the traders, and as a result they have suffered huge losses. We now have quite a few independent traders with a good variety of shops, newsagents, jewellers, clothes shops, to name but a few. Our community has worked hard to build Ventnor up, and in turn, 2 shops in particular, the Ventnor Butcher and 5 a Day, have done their level best to support the community. The way they joined forces and provided, and indeed still do provide, a delivery service for their customers during lockdown was amazing. It seems a nonsense to me that on the one hand the Isle of Wight Council is applying for grants to enhance our island, and on the other is letting their constituents down. The very least they could do have gone was waiver the car park fees in the main car park. As for White Fibre declining to offer any sort of compensation, I am frankly rendered speechless. If we are not careful, 2 of the brightest stars of Ventnor High Street, namely the butcher and the greengrocer, are in danger of being extinguished.
Bad experience in Scotland from Caroline Knox in Blackwater. I have been lucky enough to have seen beavers in Scotland, but also witnessed significant damage bringing beavers into direct conflict with people. With my family farming in the Arraton Valley, I started researching the implications of beavers' introductions 2 years ago when I became aware of the proposed release. The Scottish population growth from a few escapees around 2004 is staggering. They now cover the majority of the 5,000 square kilometre Tay catchment and have moved to the nearby 4th catchment. The island, by comparison, is 280 kilometres. The island has less space to support a beaver population without inevitable conflict with residents. I have spoken with Scottish farmers and they have shown photographs of costly and lasting damage to land, trees and infrastructure. Nature Scotland is grappling with their rapidly expanding number, and culling being unpalatable, animals are being relocated to new areas. Impacts are felt by all landowners, cycle paths and road rail infrastructure. The island-specific proposed release area might be an attractive site, but as the young are pushed out to establish their own territories, the population will very quickly be inhabiting the kind of landscape they are being translocated out of in Scotland. I don't want conflict because landowners need to protect their livelihoods and properties. I believe the UK contains far more suitable locations. I don't feel that this is the right time, nor that the island is the correct environment to be a test case. Once introduced, beavers will be here forever and develop territories across all river catchments. Are we truly prepared for that level of landscape engineering?
Animal answer from Jill Keith from Knighton. In Asda, I often take, with permission, out of date, therefore unsellable fruit and greens for my rabbits and budgies. But apparently animal charities, even the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary, cannot do this due to health and safety issues. So all this wonderful food gets thrown out. So why not offer these charities disclaimers on free fruit and veg? Who will come forward to put this matter right?
Offer second homes to refugees from Brenda Bumstead, Bembridge. The island, Seaview, Bembridge, etc., has many empty second homes, only used for a few weeks in the summer. Ukrainians have been driven out of their homes, so for a while are homeless. The second homers would eventually want their home back, and the Ukrainians will want eventually to return home. Surely, somehow, these two groups of people could be put together, so for a while the Ukrainians would have a home on the island. And maybe, if the families get along together, in midsummer, both families could holiday together in this home. And if it is not quite big enough, both lots of children could camp in the garden. I often feel very angry at the number of empty second homes here, in a country where many people are homeless, and our own children find it impossible to buy homes here due to the inflated prices that second homers can afford. If I saw second homes being used by Ukrainians, it would ease my anger and hopefully maybe lessen the guilt the second homers may feel.
Well, Wello, were you right? From Tony King of Lake. With the rise in oil and gas prices, I was wondering how the inhabitants of Wello and Thorley feel about wind turbines now, having fought with success to have 3 turbines turned down by a weak council. I can't help but think that if their attitude was repeated all over the world, then the demise of the world would become a certainty in the not too distant future. I'm sure they will wring their hands, as will I, at the rise in electric and gas prices, but I think they have, in a small way, made a contribution to this situation.
Bob, please tackle Whitelink, from Liv Vivash in Ryde. And this is a copy of a letter she sent to Bob Seeley. I would like to complain about Whitelink's current appalling service. I am a commuter needing to travel by catamaran, and in the past week have had to use up days of holiday as the service disruption has been so severe. Whitelink have taken a catamaran out of service every day for a week now, not telling you until after you have travelled one way, so you then have a nightmare getting home. Today, for example, I got to work in Hilsea and was then told no cats after 1:15 p.m. Oh, it's okay, they said, there's the car ferry or the hovercraft. And there is a bus to take you from Fishbourne back to the dry end of the pier, according to the email. But no, Hover is fully booked at commuter times, and so do the car ferry. Fine. I get to Fishbourne and there's no transport provided to get me back to Ryde. Why have they not put on a replacement service? I understand they have staff off with COVID, but no cover of staff, no replacement service, no transport from Fishbourne back to Ryde. Bob, please can you do something about this?
Looking back at memories. This week it's rediscovering the county press little stories of the 1960s. Up until the late 1970s, perhaps early 80s, the county press was filled with little 1 or 2 line articles, sometimes under the banner The Week's News, sometimes in Town and County Notes. They were odd, quirky and always of interest. This month we revive a few from the 1960s. First, some good eco news from July 1960. Salmon are known to be fastaceous fish, choosing the freshest rivers for spawning and keeping away from any form of pollution, but one was stranded by the tide and seen struggling in shallow water in Newport Harbor on a Wednesday morning. When captured, it weighed £10 and was worth about £5. 2 months later, it was freshwater's turn to make the headlines. An octopus with a tentacle span of nearly 5 feet was captured alive in a lobster pot in Freshwater Bay on Tuesday by Mr. Newbury of the Star Inn and Mr. Legg of the Red Lion Freshwater. Crowds gathered on the beach to examine the unusual capture, which was brought ashore in a large bucket of seawater and later exhibited to their interested customers by the 2 licensees. Mr. Newbury said that during the time the octopus was trapped in the pot, it had eaten the whole of the head and most of the tail of a lobster. As the octopus was easily the largest caught for several years, the landlords offered it to Sandown Zoo, but the zoo authorities were not in a position to accept such a specimen. Now, before we go any further with this cutting, a fair warning. If you don't want to know the result, look away now. So the octopus was killed, cut up and used as a lobster bait. Is honestly always the best policy? Reports like this from September 1961 make you wonder. A Cowes schoolboy, Roger Gallagher, aged 10, a pupil of Denmark School, was found a handbag containing cash and securities worth £1,000 in the street. He received a reward for his honesty from the grateful owner of £2. He took the bag to show his mother, who immediately went to Cowes police station, and while the contents were checked, the owner, a woman visitor from Chiswick, came in. After the bag had been handed to her with its contents intact, she gave the boy £2 reward.
The island had been home to thousands of troops for the best part of a century, or more in camps, forts and bases all across the island. Newport in particular was described as a sea of khaki. In February 1962 came the announcement that everyone had been expecting. The troops which have been stationed at Golden Hill Fort Freshwater and Fort Victoria Yarmouth for the past 16 years said goodbye to the West Wight with a ceremonial parade on Thursday. When the last troops depart next month, the island will be left without a regular military garrison for the first time in nearly 300 years. Someone not going anywhere that month was an inmate at Parkhurst Prison. A prisoner at Parkhurst won a £5 prize on ITV's Take a Letter programme on a Wednesday. A spokesman at the prison said afterwards, "Prisoners are allowed to go in for competitions with small prizes, and they are allowed to keep up to £10. Naturally, they cannot go in for competitions where the prize is a short tour of Italy or something like that." Proving that nothing got past the eye of the county press editor is the one-liner from the week's news in summer 1962. A bulge the size of a cricket ball, which developed in the 2-inch thick surface of Tar Macadam in Western Road Totland Bay on Friday week, was caused by a growing mushroom, which finally forced its way through on Monday. And finally, in early 1963, a Cowes boy lost the tips of 2 fingers when his homemade bomb exploded prematurely. Helpfully, the county press not only reports the story, but also informs would-be bomb makers which chemicals to use. On Friday week, a 13-year-old Cowes boy received severe burns and injuries to his right hand. The boy and his friend, aged 14, both of Cowes, were playing in Northwood Park when the accident occurred. It is understood that they were packing a mixture of chemicals, which it's probably not wise to repeat in this day and age, into a metal tube which exploded.
My View by Rebecca Roncorone. First normal party was so special. On Saturday, I went to the best party I have ever been to. Never have I felt so full of joy and excitement about a party, and there wasn't even any alcohol. For the past 2 years, my granddaughter's birthday has been held in lockdown. No 3rd birthday party, no 4th birthday party. She had never, ever had or been to a party. P didn't mind. We had our little bubble and made the best of it for her, and as she knew no different, she was perfectly delighted with balloons, presents, cake, and dancing with her mum and dad and granny and grandpa. But we knew we all wanted for her to have been able to attend nursery school at 3 years old and start the hectic social life of play dates, sleepovers, parties, and have little friends to invite to her own special day. So this year it finally happened. Her mum and dad hired a church hall, and a princess bouncy castle with a slide was booked. Invitations were brought, invitees written on her easel at home so that she could write them herself, very important, and put them in red envelopes, red being absolutely essential. Her other grandma came over from France. Her uncle drove up from Wales. The whole family got involved in decorating the hall with bunting, balloons, blowers, table decorations. Her face when she walked in was worth every moment. The pure joy and delight as she stood in her beautiful pink princess dress and a princess unicorn horn headband, looking around at the castle, the decorations, the table was indescribably special. It's a memory I will hold forever. A few years ago, I think the feelings would have been similar, but there were another layer on Saturday. To see a whole bunch of 5-year-olds running around together freely, having the time of their lives after being locked down for 2 years, made the whole scene poignant and added an extra seasoning of appreciation that meant even when the blowers were all being blown, the noise level was quite extraordinary. We, the adults, just sat there grinning, our heads off at the sight of these children having the most enormous fun together. It was a tonic all to be involved. And for the first time in their life, P had grandparents, uncle, auntie, mum, dad, and all her friends in the same room celebrating her birthday. She was one very happy little girl. I think one of the things that has come out of the past couple of years is the appreciation of how important the things that were simple, taken for granted as normal in everyday life actually are. Going to see friends, celebrating events, going to the cinema, pub, out for a meal, kids having play dates and parties, but most of all people, we need each other. I have decided that kids' birthday parties are way more fun than grown-up ones. Does anyone think there is any mileage in doing adult versions, bouncy castles, pass the parcel, but with maybe a drop of alcohol? I'm definitely up for it.
Late night services to Portsmouth should return, from our Islands MP. Thank you to all those islanders who write to me about their cross-Solent travel experiences. Having specific examples to share with the ferry companies and government ministers always helps when trying to get the point across. One of the things that concerns me most at the moment is the lack of evening services for foot passengers from Portsmouth to Ryde. Neither of the two companies runs a regular service after 8:30 p.m. A student midwife from the island recently told me about her experience of trying to get back to the island after a long shift at a mainland hospital. I thank her for writing to me and for allowing me to speak publicly about the problems she raises. She told me, on many occasions I have been left either stranded in Portsmouth or having to walk alone for 20 minutes at night in the dark, just to get home after my placement. I understand Whitelink runs commercial services, but the failure to run late passenger ferries is bad for the island and islanders. Whitelink will say that there isn't the level of traffic that there was before the pandemic. That may be true, but it misses the point. Train firms run late services, which may make a loss, because running a late service is part of the responsibilities of providing a public service. Not every service will be full. I'm sure that Whitelink make a loss on their earliest and latest services, but they should run them because that is their social responsibility. Whitelink have sometimes lacked the ability to take a flexible approach to providing services, thanks to historically weak management and aggressive unions. That has begun to change over the pandemic, but Whitelink needs to do more. Whitelink does not have a public service obligation. I wish it did, but regardless of a lack of any legal requirement to provide a late night service, it should do the right thing and understand that it has a responsibility to run some kind of skeleton service in the evenings. I would respectfully suggest to Whitelink that they consider a 10 p.m. and midnight passenger services on the Fast Cat, so that people travelling home late have some chance of getting back to the island, and trainee midwives needing to get back to the island can do so.
What's on? Choir brings heaven and hell to church. An unusual concert with a heaven and hell theme will be performed by Medina Community Choir. It will be the choir's first performance of the year at St Mary's Church, Cowes on April the 8th, with a repeat on April the 9th at St John's Church, Newport, both concerts starting at 7 p.m. Choir director Hannah Redmond said, "In 2020, we started on a programme called Heaven and Hell, featuring everything from Beyoncé's Halo and to a Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell to Hayden's The Heavens Are Telling. We didn't get to perform that year due to COVID, but the time has finally come." The choir rehearsed on Zoom during lockdowns and resumed in person with rehearsals as soon as it was permissible, performing the Beatles and peace and love-themed charity concerts last July, together with 3 festive concerts in December, before returning to the Heaven and Hell repertoire. Plans also include a gospel workshop and concert in aid of Mountbatten at St Mary's Church, Cowes on April the 23rd. In the summer, the choir will perform 4 full gospel concerts at Newport Minster on July the 30th and at St Catherine's Church, Ventnor on July the 34th, before going on tour to France during August.
Art podcasts for visually impaired. A podcast recorded at Newport's Key Arts enables partially sighted art lovers to hear what's on show. The work of 4 island artists and 48 others from art group Contemporary British Painting make up the Paradoxes exhibition. Visually impaired visitors are unlikely to enjoy the experience as those who are sighted, and Clark Reynolds wants to change that. Clark is touring major galleries on the south coast with sighted artist Steve Baker, recording art podcasts and hosting discussions. The second series of Clark and Steve's podcasts, Art in Sight, focuses on key arts and features a series of short episodes. It will be available to download from April the 4th via seeingwithoutseeing.com. Clark said, "Current audio provision for visually impaired artists gives a very short description of the work and removes the emotion from experiencing art. Steve and I approached the work like 2 art-loving friends, discussing the content, techniques and personal impact we experience from the art. We are making podcasts that can be enjoyed equally by sighted and non-sighted people, so they can share opinions on the works while they view the exhibition. Our approach has the added bonus of allowing people who can't visit the exhibition to experience it by downloading the podcasts." Ian Whitmore, Visual Arts Manager at Key Arts, said, "We are really excited to welcome Clark and Steve to record their podcast at Key Arts. We constantly strive to find new ways to increase access to the gallery. We're delighted Clark and Steve chose Key Arts for this exciting series of podcasts."
Royal approval for Peter's poem. A former Ryde businessman has written a poem so emotive he received responses from the likes of Sir David Attenborough and the Queen. Peter Woodnut of Ryde penned poem Saving Gaia back in September 2021. He sent his poem to a number of famous faces, and amongst those to respond was Sir David Attenborough, Prince Charles, Prince William and the Queen. Sir David was the first to write back to Peter inside 3 days, and his response was handwritten. Registered blind and dyslexic, Peter has been supported by charity Sight for Wight for a number of years. He started losing his eyesight when he was around 60, and it meant he had to drop his favourite hobby, photography. Peter told the county press, "As my macular degeneration got worse, it was getting harder and harder, and eventually I gave up. The 81-year-old ran Woodnuts menswear shop in Union Street until 2007, at which time he retired and went to look after his sister in Seaview. My sister was suffering from terrible sciatica and was bedridden for 3 weeks, said Peter. She was looking after her husband, who had Parkinson's. She got better, but what started as 3 weeks ended up as 5 years, and my sister had a computer which she didn't use. I never had a computer before, never had one in the shop, never needed it. I started writing a few bits and pieces, and that's how it started. I used to pen things before, but never seriously, because I'm dyslexic. Thank God for spell checker.
Was at the Isle of Wight Hospital on March the 19th and 22nd. Since March 2020, 399 islanders have died after getting coronavirus, and of those, 239 deaths were in hospital, while the others were in community settings, including care homes and the hospice. In the 7 days to March the 18th, there were 1,288.9 cases per 100,000 people on the island, compared to the UK's rolling average of 862.5. In data from Thursday, March the 24th, there had been around 1,900 new cases of coronavirus on the island in a week. It came as on March the 23rd, the island marked exactly 2 years since the first lockdown. It was also a year since islanders held a minute's silence and shone lights from doorsteps, reflecting on the year that had been. The government is now transitioning to its Live with COVID strategy. Since February the 24th, people in England have not been legally required to self-isolate after testing positive. However, the advice is to stay at home if we can, avoiding contact with other people. The government ended its financial support scheme, the test and trace support payments, but claims for self-isolation before that date can still be made until April the 6th. People who are in close contact with those who have tested positive are not legally required to take daily tests, nor to self-isolate. Since March the 18th, travellers have not needed to take tests, nor fill in a passenger locator form when travelling to the UK from abroad. In data from Thursday, March the 24th, there had been around 1,900 new cases of coronavirus on the island in a week. Most positives were only recorded on lateral flow tests because the government has removed the need for a confirmation PCR. From April the 1st, PCR and LFT tests will no longer be free for most people in England. Next Thursday, the Isle of Wight Council will hand out free lateral flow tests at the Westridge Centre on Brading Road in Ryde.
Charity leading Ukraine crisis effort lays out plans. The charity Mad Aid, which has been at the forefront of Isle of Wight efforts to help with the Ukraine crisis, has developed a series of plans to focus help where it is most needed. Mad Aid donors, volunteers and ambassadors have stepped up to provide help and has so far sent 8 containers of emergency aid to Moldova to help the mothers and children who fled the war. The charity said, "This sad situation is not going away any time soon, so we've made a plan and we need your continued help. We need funds, volunteers and so much more." The short-term plan is to ship humanitarian aid to Ukrainian displaced people. Each truck can take 1,100 boxes and costs $3,600 for each shipment. At this stage, volunteers are needed for sorting, packing, loading, unloading and distributing. The medium-term plan is to raise funds to sustain 20 centres housing 1,500 Ukrainian citizens for buying houses in Moldova. The cost of this is £14,000 per month to maintain. So far they have spent £23,142 on supplying 2 large border camps, helping around 400 people each evening with rest, food and warmth. The long-term plan is to help Ukrainians settle in Moldova and help those who choose to come to the UK. Help will be needed in the areas of kindergarten, school, employment, housing, counselling, logistics support and advice. The estimated cost to help 500 people is £175,000. Additional help will be given on ad hoc basis to other causes, including evacuating orphans, providing aid to soldiers, sourcing and supplying medication, and helping to rebuild Ukraine. To help and find out more, go to www.madaid.org.uk or email info@mad-aid.org.uk. Donations can be delivered to the County Press Office in Pyle Street, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Other drop-off venues are listed on the Facebook page Isle of Wight Community Help for Ukraine.
No More Confusion for Tourists by Zach Saunders. 2 million Brits visit the island every year, but few seem to have much of a clue where we are or even what language we speak. Other inquiries to the Isle of Wight Tourist Board include: what's the currency and will they accept English money? What side of the road do they drive on? Will I need a passport? To help clear up the confusion, travel writer and humorist George East has published Rough Diamond, a book about the history, places, people and sometimes quirky aspects of the island. Rough Diamond follows George as he spends a year visiting every town and village on the island and most of the pubs, trying to discover what it makes it such a closed book. George said, "I was curious why there were so many misconceptions about the island and why so many people thought of it as years behind the times and awash with weird customs, attitudes and characters. I have to admit I started off with some of those misconceptions, but by the end of my journey I had been won over completely. Now I know that the island is a place of sometimes stunning beauty and has a remarkable history, stacked with interesting people and places. The book is now available on Amazon and at retail book outlets."
Dental appointments numbers hit. Just a third of adults attended dental appointments as the coronavirus pandemic brought disruption to the Isle of Wight, figures suggest. NHS England data shows a steep drop in people visiting the dentist in 2020 and 2021, with many missing checkups and treatment. In the 2 years of December 2021, 40,890 adults on the Isle of Wight attended an appointment. That is significantly down on the 24 months to December 2019, when 58,987 people, or 51%, attended. Between March and June 2020, dental practices were instructed to close and defer routine, non-urgent dental care to limit the spread of COVID-19. Data relating to children shows that the volume of dentist visits, which declined during the pandemic, showed signs of improvement last year. Nationally, 43% of the child population was seen by an NHS dentist in the year to December, up from 30% the year before, but still down on the 58% seen in 2019, prior to the pandemic. Last year, 36% of the Isle of Wight's child population 8,952 youngsters saw their dentist, compared to 26% in 2020 and 54% in 2019.
Mum's heavy fine after son misses school. An Isle of Wight mother has been left £354 out of pocket after her son missed a week of school. The case against the mum, who lives in Carisbrooke, was taken to court by the Isle of Wight Council. The mother was accused of being the parent of a child of compulsory school age registered at a school who failed to attend regularly. She was found guilty in her absence at Portsmouth Magistrates Court on March the 8th. The child, aged 13, was absent for 1 week in the autumn term of 2021. The mother was fined £220 and must also pay court costs of £100 and a surcharge to fund victim services of £34, making a total of £354. There are reporting restrictions, which means the mother cannot be identified.
Lloyd's closure leaves town without bank. Lloyd's Bank in Shanklin is to close, leaving the town without a bank. A long-term staple of Regent Street in the heart of the town, the closure of the branch will come as a blow to those who live and work in the area. It leaves Shanklin with just a post office and nationwide building society, but no banks. Lloyds Banking Group has announced it will be closing 60 banking branches across the UK. Lloyds, Bank of Scotland and Halifax will see stores shut as they are all owned by the parent company. The banking group says the decision was made after the number of customers using online banking reached an all-time high this year. With 18.6 million regular online banking customers and over 15 million mobile app users, seeing an increase of 12% and 27% in the last 2 years. The full list of closure branches includes 24 Lloyds Banks, 19 Bank of Scotland's and 17 Halifax banks.
Farmer counts cost of bird flu. An island farmer who supplies eggs to all the major local farm shops and butchers has spoken of the red tape and expense due to the threat of avian influenza and how their chickens aren't enjoying temporary indoor living. Sharon Wheeler of Hazelgrove Farm, Ashey, has 5,000 chickens and all have had to move indoors for the past 16 weeks due to the threat of bird flu. Although Sharon feels it's for the best, as an outbreak would close her down, she is looking forward to an end to the situation, not least for her birds. She is hopeful in another 2 or 3 weeks the chickens will be allowed back outside where they belong. In the meantime, because the chickens have now been inside for 16 weeks, their eggs can no longer be classed as free range and are now classed as barn eggs. Sharon has had to invest in new 2 UK stamps instead of her usual 1 UK stamps and has had to relabel every single box of eggs that leaves the farm, which they do at a rate of 1,500 plus boxes a week. She supplies to Bridlesford Farm Shop, Farmer Jack's in Arreton and the Isle of Wight Farm Shop, formerly Brownriggs, as well as 47 other local business customers. Sharon said there has been a lot of time spent and added expense and red tape, without much guidance really, all a mad rush. Obviously the chickens are suffering. They would like to be outside in this weather. It's not fair on them to be in. I've not really got an option. If we got avian flu, it would close me down, so I want everyone to follow the rules. But we will be glad when it's all over. Sharon said she wants to reassure her customers despite the new barn eggs labelling, they are the same eggs, the same well-loved chickens, and the birds should be back outside again soon.
2 eagles back home. 2 white-tailed sea eagles who have spent more than a year exploring Cornwall, Norfolk and Scotland have returned to their release point on the island. Eagle G471 returned last Saturday after flying 10,978 kilometres over 17 months away from the island. Last month, Eagle G466 also made it back after spending most of last year in northern Scotland, flying 6,643 kilometres. Satellite tracking provides a very detailed insight into how the young birds are learning to live in the landscape and the extent to which they disperse and wander. The Royal Dennis Wildlife Foundation said, "This is exactly the time we expect birds of their age to start to return. It is now more than 2.5 years since the white-tailed eagle reintroduction project began on the island. In total, 25 young eagles have been released by the Roy Dennis Wildlife Foundation in partnership with Forestry England, including 12 last year. If you have taken photos or videos of the eagles, be sure to send them to us by emailing editor@iwcp.co.uk or tag the Isle of Wight County Press on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook."
And that's all we have time for today. So it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Susan.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, an imaginative initiative which could make life a whole lot easier for some visually impaired people. How just 3 random words could help you hit the bullseye when you're trying to find an unfamiliar destination.
What 3 words? The Lowry, the Keys, Salford, /groups, desks, last.
When we said random, we really meant it. But first, a situation which will take more than one thoughtful initiative to put right. These are just 2 of the emails we received after last week's programme on how visually impaired people are coping in Ukraine.
I just wanted to thank you for the programme this evening. It's just so hard to imagine how people are coping in this situation, and it must be so difficult to decide whether to stay or to leave. I was very impressed with all the people who were interviewed and in all the ways that they are helping.
I listened with great sympathy and some emotion to your broadcast about the plight of blind and partially sighted people in Ukraine. I've already done my little bit by a donation to the Disaster Relief Fund and several bin liners of bedding, toys and jumpers to one of the local groups who will take them to Poland. I may seem hard-hearted, but it is not the children that I feel most for. They may be upset and frightened, but people almost always look after children. It's the plight of people like Olga's blind parents which really distresses me, because they're losing everything familiar which they have known throughout their lives. Relocating is so stressful for older visually impaired people like them, and they are less likely to get the help they need in this terrible calamity.
Those emails from Fiona Gameson and before that Gail Guest. Well, one organisation which is trying to pull together the kind of goodwill expressed in those emails by blind people is the European Blind Union, which represents blind and partially sighted people in most European countries. I'm joined by its director, Lars Bosselman. Lars, there's clearly a great wish being expressed by our listeners who want to know how they can help. And I know the EBU is trying to harness and coordinate that spirit. In what ways are you helping or planning to help?
Yeah, indeed. We see and observe in many countries across Europe the same trend of individuals, but also organizations being extremely generous and wanting and wishing to help, which is, of course, very positive. And we try indeed now to channel that help and to sort of coordinate it so it goes the right way to the people who are really in need. And those are really in need, first of all, of course, those who remain in Ukraine and cannot or don't want to leave. And that's the most challenging part, to get actually support through to them. And that one we are still also ourselves looking into supporting schools for the blind or welcoming blind and partially sighted people, but that is not so easy. So that's the most challenging part currently. We are focusing, therefore, also in the current phase more on then the bordering countries to Ukraine, Poland mainly, but not only, of course, to supporting the welcoming of refugees in those neighboring countries, because amongst them there are blind and partially sighted refugees as well, who need, of course, everything that all people need, material, administrative support, healthcare in some cases, and importantly, for kids going back to school in the, let's say, new country. And there's a third phase I would like to mention also, which is that from the neighboring countries, there is more, let's say, a call to other European countries to also help blind and partially sighted people to go further, so to not stay in Poland or directly neighboring countries, but to go further. That could be the UK, can be Germany, Czech Republic, and many others, of course. And this is also something we, amongst our own members, we are trying to coordinate now. What are the capacities actually of those other countries to welcome blind and partially sighted people once they have been identified amongst the many refugees?
On that subject, there's already been a big response to the suggestion that people should open up their homes in the UK, as in many other countries. Is there any suggestion that maybe visually impaired people themselves might particularly be encouraged to offer accommodation, you know, feeling that with their experience of visual impairment, they'd be able to offer more kind of appropriately targeted help?
I would think, of course, as for all refugees, there's always one connection which I would call a family or friends connection, which actually means also that, many refugees, they express their desire to go to a certain country because they have their already existing family or relatives living, and that of course is for blind partially sighted people. So those who have already experience also with welcoming or working with blind and partially sighted people through their ongoing work, commitment in organizations, or through their own family experience and lived experience, I think that is particularly useful because they know how to, let's say, for example, how to guide a blind and partially sighted person, what needs really need to be catered for, and all these things are more natural, let's say, when you have already a little bit of experience. That is, I think, very, very good.
Of course, no one knows yet how and when this terrible conflict is going to end, but whatever happens, there's obviously going to have to be a massive need for reconstruction, getting places like schools and workplaces and indeed general services up and running again. Can the EBU help with this?
Yeah, this is something which we are, as we speak, already looking into very, very concretely. We get information from within Ukraine that some schools have been hit by bombs and by attacks. So definitely there is infrastructure and services that are hit and damaged. So there is clearly that need for reconstruction, rebuilding once the war is over. And so we will definitely keep also a part of the money that is collected now through the crisis time for that rebuilding, reconstruction phase, because, of course, we don't know when it will happen, hopefully very soon, of course. But that's something we definitely bear in mind from the beginning now. It's definitely something we are already having on our minds very much.
And is the EBU itself raising funds?
We are, amongst our members, we are raising funds because we are working with our and through our members in 41 countries, so it's 41 really across Europe. And we are indeed launching a call internally to also really get from those various members money that will be channeled through what we call a solidarity fund, which will then help, as I said, in those different stages. But also then already some of that amount will definitely be kept for the needs after the war when it's over.
Lars Bosselman from the European Blind Union, thank you very much. Now, is this you? You're a confident blind traveller. You've just undertaken a complicated journey with your experience and skills using public transport, navigating busy streets, crossing roads, using long cane, perhaps guide dog or maybe technology. And you get to your destination only to realise you can't find the front door. You can travel thousands of miles to discover that the last 5 yards is the hardest part of any journey. Well, now it seems there might be a solution, especially if you've got the right technology. What 3 Words is a method of pinpointing addresses by using not a complicated sequence of numbers, roads, postcodes, like most addresses, but just 3 randomly generated words. So I turn to co-founder and CEO of What 3 Words, Chris Sheldrick. Chris, how does it work?
We've divided the world into 3 metre squares, and there's a lot of those, of course. And we've named each one with 3 words from the dictionary. So something like table, chair, spoon is the name of one of our 3 metre squares, or toffee, branch, pyramid, and so on and so on. And there's enough combinations of 3 words that you can do this across the whole world. And we did it because it was a simpler way than using something like latitude and longitude, which is a huge sequence of numbers, which does cover everywhere. But we thought 3 words was just much simpler for the average person.
But they don't have to be linked, as you suggest. I know someone, and I'm not going to give away who it is, whose 3 words are clots frozen in tent. So they're completely random. So if you want to use this system, how do you know what the key 3 words are to the place you're going?
What you would do is you would launch up the What 3 Words app, or you go to the What 3 Words website, and it'll give you a map, which looks very familiar, but you can click on any grid square. So it's all kind of gridded up. And if you put your home address in, for example, you can click on your front door or your back door. It'll just show you the 3 words. They're totally fixed. You can't change them. And then it's very simple. Once you've got those 3 words, you can give them to somebody else. They can then navigate to that exact 3 metre square.
Right. I've set out what the problem is for blind and partially sighted people, and yet you didn't actually devise this with us in mind, did you?
No, that's right. I mean, it was originally made. I mean, for one, I live in a village in Hertfordshire, and our postcode covers a sort of 1 mile stretch of road, and no one ever finds where we live, it's a farmhouse. I then spent 10 years running a music business. And for musicians, I can tell you that every time you have to go to a new event, you're always loading in the back entrance, and the address never points to the right place. So we made it for just everyday people who wanted to navigate very precisely. But we've seen a lot of support from blind and partially sighted communities, because people want to know where the exact location is. And I think it's fair enough. It's 2022. We're still using addresses made 300 years ago. I think that everybody should be able to find exactly where they're going to, a couple of meters of accuracy.
Yeah, because conferences are the classic example that I find. And I also find that sighted people, as you say, can't find their way into places. So you get to a conference and it may be on a university campus. There are about 8 front doors and about 11 back doors. And sighted people never ask anybody for help. So you walk around the building about 3 times before you can get in.
Exactly. And what we've now seen is that there are a lot of venues, conference venues, event venues, like, for example, the O2 Arena, who've made a special page for What 3 Words addresses, which are now live on their website, so that anybody who needs to get to a particular point on that site can do so. Another one just last week, I think, was the Emirates Stadium where Arsenal play. These phenomenally large sites have now got 3 word addresses listed, because typing in the address of the Emirates Stadium and it dropping a pin on the centre circle is not much use for anyone apart from maybe the ref. It's really good to see that venues are starting to add 3 word addresses to sites and acknowledging the fact that there are many different entrances and places people need to get to.
And that's the point, isn't it? That to be effective, you've got to have most people using it, or really you'd like it to be universal. I mean, how well developed is it? How many people are actually using this?
The system's really, really well known now across the world, and especially in the UK. I mean, we now have 85% of UK emergency services, so across police, fire and ambulance, who will accept a 3 word address if given. And we're now starting to be built into delivery companies. So, for example, Hermes and DPD now let you put your 3 word address into their app. All sorts of ways now, in that it's becoming part of everyday life. It's not just a novel idea, it's something that you can expect.
Any downsides? I mean, how much does it depend on the kind of area it is in, or the kind of technology services there are there?
So to use What 3 Words, you will need a smartphone or a car or some kind of device. I mean, one really important thing is the system does work offline. So when you go somewhere with no signal on your phone, you will still be able to use it, which I know a lot of people depend on. So whilst, yes, you do need a smartphone, at least it is immune to going offline or anything like that. So we think it's pretty dependable and something that you should be able to use anywhere.
All over the world?
Yes, all over the world. We cover the oceans, but with very long words. So you're more likely to find dodecahedron in the ocean and table in London. But it is a global system. We do it in 50 languages too.
Intriguing. Chris Sheldrick, thanks very much for joining us. So let's just see if what 3 words is quite as simple as Chris said. I'm maybe not the best example because I've got a prehistoric phone, but I've asked Beth, my producer, to give me a hand. Now, right by Media City is the Lowry Centre. And that's a classic example of this sort of thing because it's quite big and there's a lot in it, including a shopping centre. So shall we just try the 3 words to find out what the Lowry Centre is indicated by?
What 3 words? The Lowry, the Keys, Salford, UK, /groups, desks, last.
Group, desk, last, is that right? Oh, groups, desks, last. OK, so let's see if it can guide me towards the Lowry.
Navigate to this address button. Maps. Directions to Global Insangu Consultancy UK Limited. 1, Lowry Place, the Keys, button, in list.
So what it's done, Peter, is it's given us 3 words, which I think is for the Lowry Centre. So it gives you the option to share your location into Google Maps, which is who is talking to us right now.
Right.
Walk west towards the Keys, in horizontal pager.
Well, I normally walk sort of horizontally. I'm just not quite sure which direction is west. But never mind. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What I normally do, bang this stick and see if I can hear a building. It'd be much easier for me to ask somebody. Well, perhaps proof that the app is best used to share your exact location rather than trying to navigate, or at least in my case. And after experiencing Google Maps, I think I'll stick to my prehistoric phone. Well, someone who I think has used this app, I'd imagine more successfully and skillfully than we did, is the RNIB's Senior Manager of Inclusive Design and Innovation, Robin Spinks. Robin, the RNIB have praised What 3 Words as potentially a great tool for blind people. I mean, what did you think of it and how much is it potential?
Well, we're super excited about it, Peter, really because navigation and mobility are huge challenges for absolutely anyone with a visual impairment, as you know. And what we're trying to do really is to resolve the mobility challenge in the broadest possible way. And we're not going to do that with one technology. We're much more likely to do it with a combination of technologies. So, very much part of the solution rather than something that we're saying as a standalone point-to-point solution in itself. So if you imagine being able to use a combination of haptics and sound and perhaps on-screen directions in large print, for example, being able to do that and that being able to take you from one 3x3 square to another in another city or indeed another country, that's the really exciting bit for us because practically on a day-to-day basis, it's all about enabling people to get more easily from point A to point B. And I think, the example was given as a really good one. You might be looking for a specific door or entrance, not necessarily the postal address, which might be the thing that you're given at the outset.
Trouble is it only going to be really useful for those with good technology skills? I mean, are there ways this idea could be made useful to many more blind people, not just the really skillful ones?
Absolutely. We're seeing day by day our Technology for Life team are working on the ground to get more people skilled up in using a smartphone. We've got a grants programme that's available to give people grants to help them to purchase technology. But you're quite right, Peter. If you're not using technology, one of the things you could do, if you've got a regular meeting point that you know the What 3 Words name of, perhaps you're meeting a friend who has got a smartphone, you could simply use that to identify where you are or to describe it. And also for organisations, we're asking them to think about using the What 3 Words system to describe, for example, where the disabled entrance is, or perhaps where, the box office is, or where the bar is, for example. Making sure that we're properly describing the exact location rather than an approximate one.
We're used to hearing about things that are going to revolutionise our lives, and then quite often we're disappointed. Is this really got the potential that you're talking about?
We believe it has. When you integrate it with our other solutions, you can deliver things that move the dial on mobility and navigation. We're seeing a lot of developments in this space, from LiDAR mapping to ultra-wideband, obviously the kind of beacon-based and code-based technology that people might have come across. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's not one thing as a solution in itself. It's one thing that is a really useful tool as part of the mobility challenge solution. This is very real for me. I struggle on a daily basis trying to find places, and actually being able to narrow it down with this app has been a really helpful addition to my toolkit.
Robin Spinks, thanks very much indeed, and especially for joining us after a long flight back from California.
My pleasure, Peter. I'm off for a coffee. Thank you.
I think you've earned it. You can email in touch with your views and comments on anything that you've heard in the programme. intouch@bbc.co.uk. You can deliver your voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers Owain Williams and Simon Highfield, goodbye.
Scaffolding and skip news, week commencing 28th of March 2022. Ride area. Warren Boats, Blewett Avenue, Sea View. Area 52, 38 Castle Street. S. Fowler & Co, Union Street. Henley's, High Street, Sea View. Skips, Buccaneers, Ferry Road, Sea View. And 67 Monkton Street.
Newport area, Guildhall, High Street. The Old Mill, St Cross Lane. Newport Minster, St Thomas's Square, and 24 Scarrett's Lane.
Cowes area, Jersey Cottage, Market Hill, Sun Hill. Old NatWest Bank, 104 High Street. Gallery 21, 22 Shooters Hill and the High Street. 70 High Street, the Island Sailing Club. Bella, 73A High Street, and Watson Bull and Porter High Street.
In the East Cowes area, the Co-op in York Road, and Skips at 56 South Bank Road.
In the Shanklin area, 6A Langard Road, Boots, 1 Regent Street, Pendleton's Restaurant, 85 High Street.
In the Yarmouth area, German, South Street, the Bugle, the Square.
Ventnor area, Hurst, 4 High Street and 29 Pier Street. Skips, the Methodist Church, High Street and 16 Ocean View Road.
In the Freshwater area, 19 School Green Road.
And finally, in the Sandown area, 42A Fitzroy Street, Bellamy's 71 High Street and Skip at Sandown Pier Esplanade.